Hello, everyone. Rebecca Terrell with The New American. If you've been involved in the freedom fight for any time, you're well acquainted with today's guest. Tom DeWeese is president of the American Policy Center and has been involved in the fight for individual liberty and American sovereignty for decades. He's here with us today to talk about the latest government boondoggle that's supposed to save Mother Earth from man-made climate change. It's called carbon capture and storage. Mr. DeWeese, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity on this. This is such a vital issue, and we need to get it out to everybody across the country.
It certainly is, and you've been doing that very thing. In fact, you just completed a speaking tour in Iowa. Can you, first of all, describe to our audience what is carbon capture and storage, and then why it brought you to Iowa?
Well, what they're talking about here, under the scare tactic of climate change, is that we've got to get CO2 out of the air because that's what's causing, capturing the heat in and so forth. And what they've come up with here is a carbon capture pipeline that literally is to grab CO2 out of the air and tunnel it down into the ground and store it in a ground storage facility. And that's supposed to save us from climate change. And I guess what they do is they put some kind of a little pipe on the roofs of some of these where the emissions are coming out and put it there. This thing is covering 1,300 miles in 5 states, including Iowa, North and South Dakota, Minnesota, and Nebraska. This is key farmland in for this country, the Corn Belt, and so forth. These are the people who feed us. And this thing is going to go across their land in many hundreds of acres, maybe thousands of acres. They're going to take off the topsoil so they can't grow anything on that. And they're working really hard to get farmers to sign easements to allow them to do this. And then what they're saying is that they will give them in the first year where they're not allowed to use their land, they'll give them 80% of what they used to make off of that land. Then in the second year, they'll give them 60%, the third year, 40%, and we haven't heard anything about after that. And, they're offering money to these farmers, and some farmers, of course, need money and are, subject to signing on to it. But there has been massive opposition to this across the states where this is happening. And I've been told that almost every single county supervisor council in Iowa has written letters to the Iowa Utilities Board to try to stop this thing. Now, here is the incredible thing with it. First of all, let us just say there is absolutely no scientific evidence whatsoever that there is anything like man-made climate change. And what I have witnessed over the years, for 30 years, I've been studying the radical environmental movement and the things that they do. And what I have found is that most of the policies or the programs that they try to put together supposedly to save the environment actually do more damage to the environment than what we're already doing. And the other thing that we have learned, we've actually got a chart that came from the US Navy. Here they are taking CO2 out of the air, what the plants need CO2 to grow. Whether it's the plants, the crops we're planting, or trees and other natural plants for the natural environment, you understand. Right. And what we're finding is that for an average of CO2 to survive, the Earth needs about 1,600 parts per million of CO2. For an abundant life, we really have crops growing like crazy, we would need about 4,000 parts per million. This chart that we got from the Navy shows that today we are at 400 parts per million. the earth is being starved of CO2 while they're trying to stop it altogether as a threat to nature. And this pipeline will greatly add to that further that starvation to it. So what we have here are two companies, private companies. One is Summit Carbon Solutions. The other is Navigator CO2 Ventures. These two are building these pipelines, and one of the tanks where the pipelines are going to lead to put the CO2 underground, one will be in North Dakota, the other one will be in Illinois. And but these are private companies, and they are sending a letter out to the property owners, the farms that are in the path of this thing, and they call it the Heartland Greenway, is what this is called. And this letter is coming from the Navigator Heartland Greenway LLC, and let me just read the first paragraph of what they say. This explains why they say they're doing this. They say, Navigator is proposing to build a large-scale carbon capture pipeline system spanning more than 1,300 miles across 5 states in the Midwest that will materially reduce participants' carbon footprint and further the global goal of carbon neutrality. The pipeline system, which we call the Heartland Greenway Project, will capture carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions from local facilities before those emissions reach the atmosphere and transport the CO2 safely via pipeline to a permanent and secure underground sequestration site in Illinois, so on and so forth. Well, then what's interesting here about, as they say this, the last paragraph of this letter says that our goal is to reach voluntary agreements with all landowners along the project route. Though, if we are unable to do so, we may need to request the right of eminent domain condemnation from the Iowa Utilities Board. Now, here is where it gets very interesting, Rebecca. We're talking, first of all, about two private corporations, and they are building a privately owned pipeline. And they are now applying to the Iowa Utilities Board, and they're doing this in other states as well, to become public utilities. So here we have private companies who want to use the power of government, eminent domain, to take private land from private landowners and build a private project. If there's anything more unconstitutional, I don't know what it is, but it will get worse here as I explain the things they're doing. The Iowa Utilities Board, we learned this as I was in Iowa. Former Governor Branstad appointed 2 of the members of the 3-member board of the Iowa Utilities Board. And former Governor Branstad is one of the major players with these corporations putting this together. Now, they're holding these public meetings across the state to build support for this whole thing and tell people what they're doing, and hoping to influence the Iowa Utilities Board. The Iowa Utilities Board doesn't need to be influenced. It's already in their back pocket. It's a done deal as far as they're concerned. And this, again, shows you the corruption that we're dealing with here.
And, we're hearing a lot. Let me ask you one thing. We're hearing a lot about, food shortages. How is this going to impact that?
Going to impact it in a major way. As I said, this is America's breadbasket that we're talking about here. And you add to this what is going on here. Bill Gates has bought up hundreds of thousands of acres of land in that area. He is the largest landowner in this country now. He is a major opponent of beef consumption. along with the radical environmental movement, the World Wildlife Fund has said one of the ways what we have to do to save the planet is to stop beef consumption. And that was one of the things at the Agenda 21, or at the Earth Summit in 1992, where Agenda 21 was introduced. Maurice Strong, who was the chairman of the summit, said that beef consumption was one of the major forces in global warming and is not sustainable. So here you have them focusing on major land here where we grow our corn and that sort of thing. The other thing that they, especially the corn growing there, one of the things that they produce with that corn is ethanol. We have a major force now working to get rid of gasoline, oil, and so forth, and everything would be wind and solar power. So creating ethanol is another target in doing this. And so you pull all of this together, you begin to get the picture. This is a major global plan to control the land, to control our energy use, and reduce it. And all across this country, the farmers and the beef industry and so forth are under major attack, and all in the name of sustainable. They are forcing sustainable policies on our farmers, and those policies control how much land they can use, what kind of crops they can grow, how they grow them. It even goes right down to, in some cases, to make sure that the employees working on that farm are all educated in sustainable, making sure that that's the only way that they think. I have dealt in the last few years with the beef industry, and the World Wildlife Fund has been successful in creating the Global Roundtable for the Beef Global Roundtable to bring all of the players together in the beef industry to put the sustainable policies on them. And we're losing beef ranchers by the hundreds, if not thousands. So this is going on across the country in all of these policies, and this is just one of them.
That's right. And meanwhile, the government's forcing us taxpayers to pay for all of this. $3.5 billion in carbon capture and storage projects in the last year's infrastructure bill, another $3.5 billion in carbon dioxide removal, which is actually literally large machines sucking carbon dioxide out of the air. 2.5 billion in other carbon storage projects, 1.2 billion to fund low interest loans for this pipeline expansion that you're talking about. It just goes on and on and on. And there's great danger in pipeline accidents too, because that compressed CO2 becomes heavier than air. And the residents of Satartia, Mississippi ran into problems with that in February 2020 when they had to all be evacuated. The officials said that if that had happened at night, everyone would have died because they would have asphyxiated in their beds. Carbon dioxide, that dense carbon dioxide keeps, just leaches oxygen out of the air. And you can't, you can't even run, and you can't run your cars. Well, we are running out of time. There is so much more we need to talk about in regard to this. Maybe we can meet again and keep on. But right now, in our last few minutes, what I want to do is please tell our viewers how they can get in touch with you and find out more information.
Well, let me say really quickly, one of the things I was doing in Iowa, the 5 cities that JBS brought me there and I spoke in were all cities in the path of this thing. We're bringing activists together, but I was there to talk really directly to county supervisors to tell them that they have the power to stop this. They can stand up and pass legislation in each county board and that to protect the private property rights of these people against this. Then I encourage them to join hands with other counties, supervisors across the state to make an impregnable, unpenetrated, I can't talk, and a wall that they, of legislation that they can't get passed. I will tell you some good news. In South Dakota, 2 counties have now passed a moratorium on the pipeline to stop its production at this point. That's a beginning. This is what has to happen. Iowa needs to stand up to this. All the other states need to do this, and we can stop this. To get more information from me, American Policy Center. Our website is americanpolicy.org. And we've got a lot of information there. We're going to have a lot more because I've just started. We are going to stop this pipeline and restore those farmers' rights.
That is absolutely fantastic, and God bless you for your efforts. We are right there with you, and I want to thank you so much for your time today. And let's talk again soon.
Absolutely. We'll keep you posted on what we're doing. We're going to win this thing.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.